welcome to this day amidst festivities. What people are busy with Dasara festivity, you are taking your time out and coming. I'm introducing our uh, speaker of the day, Mr. Architect Gullapalli SV Suryanar Murthy sir. He is a conservation architect, heads Kshetra, Hyderabad, India. He is a professor in architecture, JB Architecture College, Hyderabad. Is my colleague there. Is he has done his BR from JNTU SPA Masatank Hyderabad, MA from conservation in from SPA Delhi, PG Diploma Sustainable Development IEE New Delhi, PG Diploma Jyoti Vastu Telugu University, PG Diploma Town and Country Planning, Osmania University, RACA AIIA is this Associate of Indian Institute of Architects, Life Member Intact, Member ICOMOS India, NSC Cultural Landscape, ARSA International Member, ACLA Asian Cultural Landscape Association Korea, Member IIC International Institute for Conservation. He's been practicing as an independent consultant in the field of architecture, conservation, planning, and urban design with an approach of reuse, recycle, restore, appropriate, use, and maintain as principles of design, planning, and execution of project. Is specialized in documenting Indian traditional building and historical building knowledge systems. He has worked under Government of AP as Associate Professor Hatko Chair in Center for Urban Development. Studies as a trainer and capacity building facilitator. He is associated with Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Orissa, Kerala, Delhi, Assam, Punjab, Jharkhand, and Uttar Pradesh states in varied projects of heritage, human settlements, infrastructure planning, and development. He is a visiting faculty in architecture and engineering colleges and empaneled architect in central government and state government projects. His professional research work in cultural landscape, manifested meanings of sacred space in temple architecture, Alampur Group of Temples, unpublished 1998, paper published 2016. World Heritage nomination Desire for Ramappa Temple, Palampet. Conservation plan for Shiva Temple at Tiger Sluice, Ramappa Lake. Kakatiya Cultural Landscape, special reference to Ramappa Temple. Historic cultural landscape of Hyderabad, special reference to Musi River front. Today's topic, confluence of Kakatiya heritage with Telangana landscape. Our speaker will give his experience insight in Kakatiyas and its relationship with Telangana landscape with a special focus on Ramappa temple and basic insight into irrigation system of Kakatiyas. Welcome, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Zahid, our Honorable Secretary. Thank you, Zahid.
Which establishes a common link with heritage. So what is that common link with heritage which we are going to see for landscape? Kakatiyas created landscape and how it is confluencing with Telangana landscape. Unless we see it from historical geography, and geography, it means because the concept of landscape is fundamentally geographical in nature, and concept of cultural landscape emanates from fundamentally from human understanding about geography, that is anthropological, cultural, and it has connection to how things were established over the land by people, that is cultural and political geography. And what is this common link of heritage across India? and what people refer as something called Sapta Santana. Meritorious deeds of people are referred as Sapta Santana all over India. So I would like to bring upon this concept and idea. Normally when we are looking at architecture, cultural landscapes, geography, history, especially in history of architecture, we may have a very deep idea into knowledge of geographical context of Europe, Rome, and especially the Western world. When we are whatever we talk of architecture, historical architecture, we have better knowledge about be it mythology or be it history about the Western world. When it comes to Indian context, we refer most of the times only the physical structures. We ignore the link that establishes similar mythologies, though we cannot and we may not call them as mythologies. They are all itihasas and Puranas. And why do we need to call them as itihasas and Puranas, and why they are different from myths and mythologies? That also I would like to bring upon to understand this Kakatiya cultural landscapes and having a link and establishing a Telangana landscape as a strong identity all over Telangana region and partly Tamil Nadu region, also partly in Andhra Pradesh region. So that we would like to see and demonstrate with some of the examples. And the main focus is going to be on Ramappa temple, which has received, as mentioned by Narasimham Garu, World Heritage. It is going to receive some World Heritage recognition, and also there is already national recognition for the site. So I would like to touch upon some of the aspects relating to this World Heritage. And finally, the last part I would like to deal with the concept of this chain link irrigation tanks and also drinking water tanks and main tanks and irrigation systems created by Kakatiyas, and which were very clearly with the concept and idea of the geographical topographical contour system, which is forming an inverted pyramid. That means the catchment of land levels were identified, as identified by one Mr. Professor Panduranga Rao, with whom I did a study along with, he has done the detailed study. I accompanied him for some of the work. So I will be sharing some of the work presented and written by him, and also actually worked out by him for the understanding of the deeds created by Kakatiyas. As I said, geography, landscape, people, place, history, geography refers to all these. And anthropology, cultural anthropology in particular, how Kakatiyas established in India. As you would see on the left side, there are Chalukyan region, and Chalukyas from 6th century onwards, they moved to eastern part of India as Eastern Chalukyas, and they remained as dominant force in the Karnataka region with Badami and Kalyani. As Kalyana Chalukyas, they are referred, Western Chalukyas, and Badami as capital, that is Vatapi as capital, Badami, present Badami, Pattadakallu. There are many sites in Karnataka which are referred as Western Chalukyan region. Whereas in the coastal Andhra Pradesh, with Telugu speaking dominant region. They moved to coastal Andhra Pradesh with Vengi, as referred as Vengi Chalukyas. With present East Godavari district, we have a site called Pedavegi as a site, and so from Eastern Chalukyas and Western Chalukyas, there were a lot of connections, and there were independent chieftains during between Chalukyas and the Eastern and Western Chalukyas. There were also Rashtrakutas in between during 9th and 10th centuries. And there was also growth of local, here in terms of overall political hold on the land, though it is referred as Chalukyas or Rashtrakutas or Kakatiyas, there were individual chieftains who enjoyed their power locally at the village level or at 10 villages level or 15 villages level. So that kind of administrative system was in hold during Kakatiyas, where Kakatiyas' hold was acknowledged by local chieftains, but at the same time, they followed the deeds and the methods of Kakatiyas only as part of their work. You would see the central picture, Kakatiyas spreading over Warangal as the capital, and also spread over up to Nalgonda district. You would see major site, Pillalamarri as the major site. And the later part, Vijayanagara also had this connection. What is this later part connection to do with Kakatiyas? What is this former part of Chalukyas to do with Kakatiyas? It is the common heritage knowledge that continued, the landscape knowledge, the landscape perspective, the architectural perspective, and the common cultural background with which all these people continued from Chalukyas to Vijayanagara. So from Chalukyas to Vijayanagara, when you see fortifications, when you see settings, when you see the locations of the villages, towns, temples, hills, rivers, there seems to be some kind of a visual similarity. There is a visual similarity that can be seen all across these landscapes. That is what I'm going to demonstrate, and also with the help of some of the sketches and with specific example of Ramappa temple. And this writing of Kumara Sambhavam in 5th century during Gupta's time, much before Chalukyas, and also this 12th century of a Telugu writing called Nanne Chodini Kavitvam, which mentions this Sapta Santana for the kings and people as a righteous activity, that is a meritorious activity that should be conducted by kings and people for the benefit of the society, future, and heritage. This is how it was mentioned. What are these 7 meritorious deeds because of which you would see the landscapes that are spread over Kakatiyas, Chalukyas, and Vijayanagara? That continuity could be seen. That is what could be established from the knowledge systems of these Kakatiyas. What are these 7 deeds? Constructing a tank, having a son, taking a kavya in dedication, the hoarding of a treasure, planting of a grove, construction of a temple. So marriage of a girl to a Uttama Purusha, a good man, it is not just only Brahmana or Agrahara. Agrahara is a village and settlement. So this is how it mentioned, and that is how the landscapes emerged, because people had this belief of Sapta Santana, and as a act of meritorious deed, they continued. Kings continued, and nobles continued. Many people continued, and especially Kakatiyas established many such temples, tanks, and villages. And as an example, you would see in Ramappa temple. These are the sites across. I have drawn the erstwhile Andhra Pradesh map, and also the present Andhra Pradesh and Telangana map I have highlighted here. And on the right side, you would see Kakatiya spread region. You would see the present. That is the reason it is said, because after Eastern Chalukyas, who were predominantly speaking Telugu language, and you would see the map related with the erstwhile Andhra Pradesh map. So that means larger Telugu speaking land was Kakatiyan Empire, Kakatiyan Kingdom. It was not an empire, but it was a kingdom spread over this geographical portion of the land. And you have many temples and structures, and many inscriptions were found. And when we are researching on this, we need to consult various aspects, be it geography, be it cultural anthropology, or the kind of inscriptions and evidences that we have on various aspects of the society and culture. Kakatiyas in specific spread over this land, this portion of the land, from 900 Christian era to 1323. And they were, as a part of this meritorious deeds, they promoted art and culture and contributed a lot, being a Telugu dominant, Telugu speaking people. They promoted culture pertaining to Telugu language, Telugu script, Telugu writings, and most important thing, what they have understood, what it shows, they have a deep knowledge of minerals, minute knowledge of building materials, contours of the land, because of which are evidently visible in the execution of various temples and tanks and villages constructed, be it fortified or defined, connected with some kind of an activity with temple, or established. They were established. And for the, as part of the study, we did in some of the year in 2014 to 2019. Earlier archaeology department, the Department of Archaeology and Museums, present Telangana Heritage Department, was doing a documentation project of all Kakatiya temples and Kakatiya sites. So they documented some of the sites which are indicated here inside Warangal Fort, and there is one famous temple in Nalgonda district, Chaya Someswaralayam. There is a scientific shadow pattern that is constantly visible at one location from this temple. That the scientific phenomenon is embodied in this temple. And there are Kotagullu at Ghanapur, Trikutalayam of Jakaram, Katakshapur, Atmapur, and there is Mallikarjun Swami temple at Ainavolu, the Pillalamari temple at Suryapet, Metlabavi Varangal, Godishala temple. All these are distinctly Kakatiyan. What does it make by distinct, and how we recognize as Kakatiyan architecture? We are going to see in some 2-3 examples, and more specifically in Ramappa temple. So I would be talking about Swayambhu temple and Warangal in brief, and Thousand Pillars temple and Hanamakonda, and Ramappa temple, Palampet, temples, towns, and trees and tanks. That is how they established in these landscapes, be it Warangal, be it Hanamakonda, or be it at Palampet, which is 70 kilometers from Warangal. Coming to Swayambhu temple, why I am talking about these three temples? This had happened as part of the documentation of all Kakatiya temples in terms of architectural drawings and settings documentation. We took up more specifically these three for the purpose of World Heritage nomination being prepared, because it required comparison of Ramappa temple to prove Ramappa temple as unique, and also having communicating the whole value desired by World Heritage status recognition. So what are the characteristics desired and criteria decided by World Heritage body, that is UNESCO, World Heritage Center? All that criteria had been justified, and it required a comparison with similar size of temples or similar size of structures having similar significance, or what the kind of significance is required to be compared. So for that purpose, we did a detailed study of all the three. That is how I'm detailing out, I'm speaking about only these three. Swayambhu temple, Warangal is famous for this Kirti Torana, which I'm going to show in another slide. And this drawing taken from Philip Wagner documentation. On the left side, you would see only parts of Swayambhu temple, remnants of Swayambhu temple given here. So this is a fortified town, and it has 3 temples inside the fortification, and there was habitation. But right now it is completely, most of the portion is destroyed during 13th century invasions, except Ramappa temple. We find this completely vandalized. So you would see only parts of it as a site. This is the aerial view of Swayambhu temple. You have only the pattern visible, pattern of the temple visible on the ground, and only some remains are existing. Otherwise, fortification is existing on the site. This is Thousand Pillar temple, Rudraeshwara temple, which is also called as Rudraeshwara temple, Hanamakonda. This has full of habitation all around. Full of habitation all around. Whereas Swayambhu temple at Warangal, there is a habitation, but there are also agricultural lands. There is a lot of open lands still continuing from the history. Whereas this Thousand Pillar temple has so much of habitation all around, and you have link when you see the larger picture of the Hanamakonda town. You would see a tank, and you would see 2-3 tanks, and also you would see this temple and the settlement. So to establish this link in the urban area is difficult. So this remained as an enclosed, secluded site within urban area. So this was not promoted and nominated as a World Heritage Site, and including Swayambhu temple. Only the Ramappa temple could be nominated because of the present status of the site. The status of the site also you are going to see in some of the pictures now. Next pictures. So this is Hanamakonda. You can see the surrounding urban development and how the boundaries are defined as protected by Archaeological Survey of India. And now the actual work on Ramappa temple we are going to see. And how is it defined by UNESCO, these cultural landscapes? Cultural landscapes are defined as we have landscapes, natural, and landscapes generated due to culture. And it exists by nature. If there is a combined work of nature and humankind, then it could be called as a cultural landscape. The intimate relationship between people and their natural environment, be it in terms of the architecture, in terms of network, in terms of road, in terms of connections, in terms of society, how whatever is created around it, and this is distinctly visible in terms of architecture and patterns over the land. And by UNESCO, there are 3 categories recognized. One is clearly defined landscape designed and created intentionally by man. And there are also organically evolved landscapes, and there are associative landscapes. Because of cultural association, because of some memory, because of belief, people create and use those landscapes. This is the beautiful location that we are looking at. We are referring to this Ramappa temple with Ramappa Lake formed by because of the catchment alongside of the 2 hills on either side of the Ramappa Lake, connected by the earthen bund. That earthen bund also was created for the purpose of irrigation from the catchment created because of the hill that you are seeing on the right side, and also on the left side, far beyond this picture, there is another hill which is connected by this bund, and coming, and never in the history there is a spilling over of the water. That means the full tank level was well taken care of here. On the right side, you see the route on the that is connected to the western side of the temple, leading towards Palampet village. This is the aerial picture, and predominantly when we say Kakatiyan landscapes, the main features that we see are there are agricultural lands, and there are small bunds created along the lakes called as cheruvus, and most of these bunds and dams were built, they were not built on the rivers as we are doing today. They are all just built between these 2 hills, and there is a catchment. So there is a bund created connecting these 2 hills, and on the other side, naturally another bund is created. That means the water is retained for the surrounding villages, and there are channels and there were canals leading towards this cultivation lands. And what you are seeing is some of the paddy lands and other agricultural lands. As I mentioned in the beginning, that the connection that 7 meritorious deeds. Similarly, there is a belief of while establishing temples, there is a saying in some of the traditional texts followed by either Chalukyas, Kakatiyas, and Vijayanagaras people, Vijayanagara Empire. The temple is required to be established where there is a river or where there are mountains where there are natural springs, and where there is a town, and where there is a pleasure garden, and you would see most of the most sacred places considered, like Srisailam, Alampur, this Dwadasha Jyotirlinga Kshetras and Ashtadasha Shakti Pitas. I'm not talking anything about religious here. What I'm talking about is how people linked and created, and what do we need to understand when we talk about a cultural landscape. So the culture with which these structures were established and how the landscape is associated with it, and why people believed in such type of deeds and such type of activities, and that reflected on the landscape, over the landscape. So a temple, as we have seen, and the location of a consecrated space, one of the example near Ramappa Bandis, there is another temple which is a 3 cells formation, Trikutalaya. So one cell is formed by Garbhagriha here, and on either side there is a Garbhagriha formed, and it is over the hill edge, and which is connecting the bund of the Ramappa lake, and the axis of the temple is exactly connected to the agricultural lands, and the axis is connected to the flow of water, run of water. That is how that creates the feeling of sacred idea, and that is how people connect it. So when people create the landscape and setting and surrounding, it follows the direction of water flow, it follows the direction of agricultural lands, direction of the village, and facing of the water, temple facing the water. All these were taken care of while establishing these temples, structures, villages, and tanks, interconnected. And studying the example of Ramappa temple, which is about 2 kilometers away, there is a Palampet village. What you have seen, the aerial image, it is just in the open land. And it is exactly as mentioned in the inscription pillar inside the temple complex, as described. The surrounding geography was described in the inscription pillar. It is exactly matching with the time of 13th century when that was established, and it is same as it is even now. That is for the reason because it maintained that authentic setting of 13th century. Government of Telangana planned to get the recognition because it maintained original idea, original landscape setting as it is from the time of 13th century, and without any disturbance, it is promoted and nominated for the level of World Heritage recognition. And there is water, there is a stone, there are fields, there is divinity established, and there is a village. And coming to further larger picture, there is a lake, there are 2 hills, and there is a bund created, there is a Ramappa temple and connected village. So what is the relationship that is established and continued? We talked about Chalukyas, Kakatiyas, and Vijayanagara, the later part and before Kakatiyas. All of them maintained this. The idea of Sapta Santana, doing meritorious deeds and establishing temples in a significant location. These were the ideas and values continued by them. That means to presence of, when you see Hampi, Vijayanagara, you have a hills and stones, and there are temples, there is a village. And you see Badami, Aihole, Pattadakallu, Western Chalukyas, you have a temple, you have a rock formation, you have a lake, and what, so that the idea, and even from Cholas, Pallavas and Cholas, if you see, the tradition of this knowledge of Sapta Santana continued among this and also the idea of Brihad Samhita to establish where to establish a temple, where to establish a village, where to establish a town. So all these ideas were as a dharmic activities by the people, by the kings. So that is how they maintained this human settlement and temple and hillock landscape. You see wherever the temples were established by the Kakatiyas in Telangana region, you will find this relationship significantly visible in terms of the setting, as if the photographic idea was transferred from 5th century to 15th century. Today, when we design structures and buildings, and the photographic idea, photographic memory is very difficult to transfer to another location. But here, they maintain that kind of a visual memory from one generation to one kingdom to another kingdom. That means there was some inherent idea connecting the entire landscape of India, which is again specifically visible in Kakatiya landscapes. So these are the major elements: water, stone, fields, and divinity settlement that is visible. And this is the documentation drawing prepared between the two hills. As you see, the north pointed towards up, the Ramappa temple. There is a slight tilt of the temple. And there is a village 1 kilometer to the north of this temple, and the balance is agricultural land. For the purpose of World Heritage, it required the definition of what it would define as a core zone and buffer zone. So we maintained these drawings from Archaeological Survey of India, which normally takes the idea of 100 meters and 200 meters as a general a boundary to define core zone and buffer zone, though that is not anything technically sometimes appear valuable, but it protects in the present day so that people don't enter into that zone and people don't deform any part of it. So we can maintain the original setting of 13th century. So imagine going to a site of pyramids and going to a site of Rome and wherever Roman temples, we find if they are original, it gives a lot of understanding and insight, and we can go deep into the time of Kakatiyas. So that is how this is maintained, and you would see, you could see this on the aerial picture too. And I'm going to show some of the close pictures also. This is the aerial picture of the site view, top view of the temple, generally referred as a site plan in our architectural language. We have central temple, and most of the Kakatiya temples are, we have normal, all Indian later temples have a Garbhagriha, Antarala, Ranga Mandapa, and Mukha Mandapa. But you will not have these extended cells on the north and south. You will have on the west side this temple, and east side the entry, Mukha Mandapa, and the outside Nandi Mandapa you would have. Whereas Kakatiyan temples are dominant by this Trikutalaya, so forming 3 cells, so having entrances or other 2 temples. In the case of Warangal, Hanamakonda, there are other 2 temples on either side. Whereas here in Ramappa temple, there is an access to outside. Inside the mandapa, there are small temples along the walls. But otherwise, these 2 other act as the entrances, side entry into the temple. So the form of the temple is Trikutalaya, which is a typical pattern of Kakatiya temples. And this is Kateshwara temple, and there used to be a Kameshwara temple here, which was dismantled part by part, and the parts are kept here because it gave away at a later point. So that was planned to be arranged, reconstructed here at this location. This is the same close-up picture once again. The style is interpreted as Vesara style, Trikuta Laya form. Vesara, we hear this Nagara style and Dravida style. I'm not going into the details of any architectural style part here. I'm going to show only some of the images and show the landscape relationship. And the technology and criteria with which it was sent for nomination of this World Heritage status. So I'm going to show the criteria with which it was nominated and the details of it I'm going to show. Otherwise, I will just run through some of these architectural details. This is the close-up picture from the one of the north and south sides. There is a projecting bracketed dancing structures which are supporting for the first time in this temple of 12th century, along with Hoysalas in Karnataka. This temple also had used this bracketing, projected bracketed pictures. We have this a book was written by an art historian named Chudamani Nandagopal during the preparation of World Heritage nomination dossier, and this site was proposed under 3 criteria. Criteria 1, 2, 3. I'm going to detail this, explain what are these criteria 1, 2, 3, and how it fits into World Heritage level. And this is the cover page on the left side of the book written by Chudamani Nandagopal, artist, art historian. So this was prepared way back in 2014. Before nominating a site, it requires detailed documentation of the site for the purpose, both in terms of photographs, drawings, and historical documentation. Everything is required to be collected and collated at one place to present before this World Heritage Committee. There were many people who were part of it, and mainly coordinated by Kakatiya Heritage Trust, Professor M. Panduranga Rao, who was the main person to handle this project of World Heritage nomination. There are others, Mr. B.V. Paparao, and scholars, archaeologists, Mr. D. Vijayanath, Babji Rao, Anil Kumar, Visalakshi, who was earlier director of Department of Archaeology, and Chudamani Nandagopal, art historian, who has done extensive research on the dance traditions during Kakatiya time, and she has exclusively written this book, the one what I had mentioned, on dance traditions and art traditions during Kakatiya time. In 2014, when the site was still with Andhra Pradesh government, this was sent as a tentative nomination, along with Swayambhu temple and Rudreshwara temple at Hanamakonda. Finally, it was decided to prepare the detailed work only on Rudreshwara Ramappa temple with criteria 1, 2, 3. Earlier, it was sent in 2014 with a brief 10-page document. Later, it was detailed out into some 300-page document along with some additional support of documentation, architectural drawings exclusively on Ramappa temple and surrounding areas to demonstrate the values exhibited by this particular temple. So, as I said, this is nominated under 3 criteria. The criteria 1 is it is representing a masterpiece of human creative genius. So, from the landscape, what is the masterpiece of human creative genius? It is the masterpiece of Kakatiyan style of temple architecture, where they had innovation in creating a floating brick and in creating a sandbox foundation. What is a sandbox foundation? I am going to show with the help of a sketch in the next thing. And selecting the materials, this lightweight material which can float in water. How can it float in water? If the density is less than water, then it can float in water. So this is 0.8, whereas the density of water is 1. When you have this brick that is created with the help of organic material and also organic glues that were incorporated in this, with the chemical test Archaeological Survey of India and other organizations could decipher, one can manufacture this today. Now there is a knowledge available, and this was deciphered. The whole technical scientific data was written by Professor Panduranga Rao, and it was incorporated as part of this documentation. And what you are seeing in the central part is Chalukyas, Pallavas, Cholas, when they were constructing, and even later Vijayanagara, when they were constructing these temples, they used extensive foundations wherever they were constructing these temples. Whereas in Kakatiyas, exclusively in Kakatiyas and also in some Chalukyas we will find, but predominantly in Kakatiya sites, there is no foundation available. It is directly built over the sand which is created below, and it is confined by means of ramming it, and within that box of the area where it is going to be constructed, they used to dig and fill it with the sand and construct the temple directly over it by using large members, large stone pieces, large brick pieces, joined with interlocking technology, laid over layer by layer, and it is constructed up to Shikara level. That from the top Shikara level to the parapet level, there is a use of lime mortar, you would see. Whereas the bottom portion is completely with dovels, iron dovels, with interlocking technology, and just placed over the sand box that is created below. So this was discovered during 1980s by National Institute of Technology, Warangal, and by digging test pits alongside the structures. This formed as part of the representing the masterpiece of human creative genius. And the criteria 2, I talked about the meritorious deeds created by kings during Cholas, Chalukyas, continued to Kakatiyas, and continued up to Vijayanagara. That interchange of cultural values. So same cultural values continuing from 5th century to 16th century, and which were established in Kakatiyas during Kakatiya time. That is what is linking India, which is very much seen in Kakatiya landscapes also. So that Kakatiya landscapes demonstrated this interchange of these cultural values. The same common cultural values which were used by Chalukyas were transferred to Kakatiyas and transferred to Vijayanagara, which is well maintained and which is visible in this Ramappa temple very clearly. in its original form. So because it is visible in its original form, to see the 12th century and 13th century live today, even in 21st century, that is promoted under criteria 2. So what were these cultural values displayed in terms of construction technique, in terms of these cultural values given by them? You would see in Hoysalas also similar thing, and in the temple form, which is unique to Kakatiyas, the Trikutalaya form, what you would see, and in Thousand Pillar Temple also. Thousand Pillar Temple you have on the right side is the Thousand Pillar Temple example, which is forming like a temple on the other side also, on the eastern and south and northern sides, whereas the west side acted as the entrance. In the case of Ramappa Temple, you have south and the north as entrances, including the east, whereas the west acted as the main temple. And another unique thing for Kakatiyan architecture style is this Kirti Toranas, the double pillared Kirti Toranas, which you don't see. There are Toranas established in various architectural elements and architectural structures across India, but this Kirti Torana of Warangal, Kirti Torana of Kakatiyas is very much unique only to Telangana, only to Kakatiyas, which is promoted as criteria 2. And though it has interchange of cultural values from Cholas, Chalukyas, and continued even after Vijayanagara. Another criteria that is taken as the unique testimony to a cultural tradition. What unique tradition? There are panels, and these panels engraved on the walls, very fine panels, very finely carved panels. So the technology, the science and technology is very much visible in carving these things in a fine, minute sculptures, where needle also can pass through in this with some of the gaps. How could they do it? How could they do it? So the science behind it was established in terms of calculations, in terms of data that was provided, and it is proved and also demonstrated. Some of the dance traditions which are returned, what are the dance treatises returned during 13th century, dance treatises returned during 12th century, 5th century. They were compared with the contemporary and present day knowledge of dance tradition. Bharatanatyam, Perini Nrutyam, and other dance traditions were verified. And what was established as Puranas and Itihasas, they were engraved on the walls. So when we read other Western architecture, we talk about mythologies. Similarly, we should understand about these Puranas and Itihasas for the sake of understanding the landscapes spread over across India, and in specific Kakatiya cultural landscapes across Telangana. So there is something called the outstanding universal value that was required to be established as part of this. If you read the first line, that itself is enough to understand the overall outstanding universal value established by this temple. This is defined as the living prodigy of sculpture making, seismic resistant sandbox technology, and engineering innovation by creating the floating bricks. And this belongs to the interchange of human values over a span of 180 years. So that is very much visible. What values were shared by Cholas, what values were shared by Vijayanagara and by Kakatiya. That 200 years of just before and during Kakatiyas and also later, that interchange of human values during this period is established and very much visible in this site. And they have adopted carefully this Trikuta form of Chalukyas and later developed by Vijayanagara dynasty that is also defined as the outstanding universal value established by this temple. As I said, this is built over not the wall is not built over any foundation. It is built over the sandbox foundation. That is also demonstrated as the one of the value. This is the architectural the drawing and documentation taken up, and the later part, this is also documented, and the southern part is also documented after completion of that, and now that is under renovation. This is the aerial site drawing, and this is the line drawing of the temple. As I said, the understanding we need not know the details of Purana or details of Itihasa. Need not know, but the only thing is one has to be aware when we are teaching, when we are talking about it, when we are understanding these landscapes. They cannot be brushed aside as some kind of connection to religious activity. It is nothing to do with religion. It is the way of life that made Telangana landscapes and Kakatiya landscapes that could be seen and can be understood only if we understand the basic background with which all these landscapes and sculptures, architecture and structures were created. The ceiling which has given the performance of this marriage between Shiva and Parvati, called Girija Kalyana, and the dance traditions, the famous Perini dance tradition is established on the columns. And there is a book written by one of the military general, Jayappa Senani, called Nritya Ratnavali. After the establishment of Ramappa temple, he took inspiration from this temple, looking at the various dance traditions, Bharatanatyam, and also Perini dance and Kolatam dance, and the Puranic incidents as a photographic incidents. All the Puranic and Itihasa incidents were engraved on the wall. All these Puranic and Itihasic and also contemporary sculptures belonging to Kakatiyas and the General Rechirla Rudra, who established this temple, on whose name this temple is also named as Rudreshwara temple. Though it is called as Ramappa temple, though people attribute this to a sculptor named Ramappa, but it is nothing to do with, in terms of inscriptions and history, it is nothing to do with the sculptor. There used to be a temple. It is believed that there used to be another temple here belonging to Chalukyas, which was re-established by Rechirla Rudra, on whose name the inscription pillar established in the site, which clearly says that this is established on his name and hence to be known as Rudreshwara. Rudra established by Rechirla Rudra, and it is hence to be known as Rudreshwara, and the temple is Rudreshwara Alayam. And because it had some similar name as Rahappa or Rameshwara kind of names, which continued, and colloquially people name it as Ramappa temple. And there is also a myth that was created as belonging to a sculptor named Ramappa, but it doesn't have anything to do in terms of historical actual evidences. It doesn't have anything to do with the sculptor. It is something to do with the earlier name, which continued colloquially, but the inscription name is Rudreshwara Alayam, whereas generally it is known as Ramappa temple. And also people refer as Ramalingeshwara temple, but as per inscription, it is Rudreshwara temple. This is another picture of the Girija Kalyana in the ceiling. the structural feature after the erection of this Adhisthana portion, the pedestal. This is the column is supporting this cantilever projecting out from this portion and is supported by this bracket dancing figures. Some of them are dancing figures, and some of them are Yali figures. Some of them are Gajayali figures. And you have at the entrance, at the sideways, the sculptures of across the doorways, Ganga and Yamuna sculptures, and also the direction protecting deities. So Ganga and Yamuna is relating to water. So it is always related to landscape, water, minerals, and materials. So you have water becoming a sculptural form, Ganga and Yamuna. When you are entering into a temple, because it is on the doorway, you are entering into water. Entering into symbolically, you are entering into water. So it is transforming the nature, getting transformed into architectural form and icon and a sculpture gradually, and you are relating. So that is known to the user, that is aware by the user. So it has a connection to that. Another detailed picture of this dancing figures and also Yali figures, Gajayali and also Simhayali figures. Projected Kapota portion, the parapet bracketed cantilevered projection is supported by this column and brackets very effectively. Though both the stones are the one, the black stone is the dolerite one, and the main pillar is the sandstone, which is quarried from 4 kilometers from the site. The quarry site was also identified by the archaeologists. This is another picture. Now we are moving on to after this Ramappa setting. These are the settings that we had seen as Kakatiya cultural landscapes across Telangana, and there were also many tanks established by Kakatiyas and later promoted even Vijayanagara, and also later part continued even till Qutub Shahi's time. They were continued, and even today we have. And now there is a major grand scheme already taken up by Telangana government under Mission Kakatiya, under which they undertook a satellite study by Professor M. Panduranga Rao on the work study. And they identified that, in fact, Kakatiyas, Chalukyas, and even earlier people, they had the idea of land without any equipment and techniques. We don't have evidence of availability of such equipment, but they must be having some kind of, certainly some kind of equipment and knowledge and intuitive knowledge about contours and systems that existed. That is how they could visualize the large expanse of lands spread over 600 square kilometers, 1000 square kilometers, and 1500 square kilometers. They could establish and visualize linking the tanks to maintain the groundwater and for the purposes of drinking, and also for the purpose of irrigation, agricultural purposes. And these were some of the maps of various districts, and this is Mahbubabad district. You have various tanks, traditional tanks established during Kakatiya time and also later part, and even much before, which are maintaining. And when we see the satellite picture and also contours, it forms a inverted pyramid. And what you would see on the north side, these top points are, they are at the higher elevation, and the Koil Sagar at the lower elevation. Koil Sagar and below is of Mahbubnagar district is at the lower elevation. So it is forming some kind of a complete drainage network collecting at Koil Sagar, but that is the aquifer below the ground could be continuing like that. So this was identified with the help of satellite data by Professor Panduranga Rao. This is the chain link tanks as captured by satellite imagery, how these tanks were linked. And in Nalgonda district also, that inverted pyramid is identified in the north side. On either side, it is on the higher elevation. On the lower side, it is on the lower elevation. So inverted pyramid could be formed across, and it can be diagonally along the land, but it is clearly forming such type of inverted pyramids when we look at the satellite maps today. There are many drainage and surface water bodies. This is specific to earlier Ramappa temple and Laknavaram Lake, Ramappa Lake. All these were in Jaishankar Bhupalpalli district. Now they are part of Mulugu district. In the districts formation, they have been reorganized into Mulugu. What you would see, the larger formation is this Ramappa Lake and Laknavaram Lake here on the south side. You have so many water spots, and within Hyderabad you have Hussain Sagar, Usman Sagar, and Himayat Sagar. We are facing so much of rain havoc in the last 2 weeks. We are all witnessing that, and if they had been managed and well, I think we would have been watching some beautiful landscapes, but otherwise we are facing a lot of difficulty. Now, looking at this satellite picture, these were some of the site study when this was taken up. And what is the basic thing that is being taken up by Mission Kakatiya, by Telangana government? Why I am highlighting this here is what kind of vision was had by Kakatiyas, and the purpose of it is to restore these Kakatiyan tanks under Mission Kakatiya. Now there is lift irrigation, there are canals, there are aqueducts, there are barrages, and there are flood banks created as part of this. And to restore these tanks and to maintain the aquifer appropriately. And so one has to suggest, and there are many innovative methods one could do. And there are also mistakes being done by the current knowledge systems, and all these mistakes have to be corrected while doing, and unless we understand this traditional knowledge, culture, geographical and landscape perspective, we may not be able to do justice for these kind of works. And this is the Telangana region, and which is taken up by Telangana government under Mission Kakatiya. So with this overall view, I would like to conclude my presentation of today's presentation. And if there are any queries, I would like to take, and based on how it is organized.
Very
yes, sir.
Insightful, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Very insightful. Sir, I always had a question, just an observation. Why is this orientation not to true orientation? Why is it slightly tilted, the temple orientation?
Yeah, most of the temples, they be it Ramappa temple or even other temples, they used to do some of them directly to the east and west by establishing the summer solstice shadow pattern and winter solstice shadow pattern. they used to do this kind of experimentation before constructing a temple or
Correct.
constructing any structure to establish the direction. But while establishing it, they would take care of the immediate context that is available. And as you had seen, it could be as per the inscriptions and as deciphered by historians also, they tried to link with the tank available on the site and also orient alongside these hills. So that is the reason you see a small tilt. Whereas in Ganapur temple, all these temples are to the true north and true east and west.
Right. Right, sir. So I got a question from Ramagopal, Mr. V. Ramagopal. Very interesting presentation by architect Surya Nanamurthy Garu. Congratulations. Thanks, Isola. Some people say the intricate detail is in the temple was done by some technique of melting the stone and molding the figure. Is that right, sir? How
Yes,
far is it?
yes. I have seen that video, but this particular nomination was prepared and coordinated by geologist. Professor M. Panduranga Rao is an expert in geology, who is an expert in understanding minerals and rocks, and he says rock melting technology cannot be ruled out, but certainly there is no historical evidence, and at that point of time we cannot say that they used this rock melting technology, though we cannot rule out. That is what it has mentioned. But in terms of inscriptions, in terms of continuing traditions as observed by archaeologists and historians, it was all completely, because that is how these temples took so many years. They took about 14 years to construct, 14 years. So that means to establish each and every column, to correlate each and every member of the temple, it took time. It is not completely, he rules out the possibility of, though he says it could have existed, but there is no evidence of such technology adopted in this temple. Rock melting technology, there is one exclusive one person from the USA who has done several videos on various cultural heritage sites across India. He had been talking about it. There are facts about some sites, but particular to Ramappa temple, this is not a fact.
Murthy, I have a question.
Sir.
Regarding that floating, brick or whatever you call,
Sir.
there have been chemical experiments by the REC Warangal. What is NIT today? I think Professor Panduranga Rao is from NIT.
Yes.
He's the head of the civil engineering department.
He was part of civil engineering department. He is a professor in geology. He's a professor, retired professor in geology.
I remember that they did some experiments with the chemical.
Yes, they did the experiment.
We had highlighted some of those would have been wonderful, I felt.
Yeah, I could do only part of it. But,
the science behind the building material.
Yes, mainly the density of material, the density of the brick is less than water. So if it is equivalent to 1, it will sink. It is above 1. Because of the density of the water is 1. If it is more than that, it sinks. If it is manufactured with less than that weight, so whatever the material that we put into water with less density of water, it can float. That means if any material that is manufactured with that of less density of water can be done, and it has been experimented, and it is found out that it is 0.8, and whereas the crushing strength also has been tested. The normal brick is 70 kg to 80 kg, whereas the crushing strength of this is 130 kg, 130 kg per centimeter square. So all these experiments were conducted by NIT Warangal, but I have not incorporated into this.
Could you get one sample with you any day?
Yes, yes, I have seen the sample. I have seen the sample.
You have acquired and brought it to Hyderabad.
No, 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 no.
You should have brought it to Hyderabad and put inside in your house one bucket of water. You could have showed us.
No, no, I have seen personally, and when we went to Paris to present this before World Heritage Committee, we had demonstrated this in front of the committee. Professor Panduranga Rao himself experimented and conducted this experiment and demonstrated this, how this could float, and the scientific phenomena behind it was explained to them.
Probably a video must have been made.
No, during that it was not permitted, but a video is available across the YouTube. There were other people who made videos, and it is available across the YouTube.
Okay. Okay, Nanda Kumar, Nanda Kishore, P. Nanda Kishore.
Yes.
He has just, you can see his chat. He's saying something.
Sir, can I take it by order?
Yes,
I
yes,
think you are
please.
taking the
Please,
latest
please.
question. I'll just take it by series. So Mr. Sanjay has a question that is the inverted pyramid topography also in alignment with the topographical slant of the Deccan Plateau in Telangana region?
Yes, that inverted pyramid has been identified by Telangana State Remote Sensing Agency and coordinated by this Professor Panduranga Rao. And they identified that there is this inverted pyramid visible in at least 8 sites spread over 600 square kilometers, 1200 square kilometers, 2,500 square kilometers each. So that is how they have taken the regions, and they had seen the topography points and elevations of these points, and they came out to be inverted pyramids. That means the bottom part is the catchment, the aquifer catchment, not the surface catchment.
Actually, Murthy, this
Sir.
comes from the concept of a leaf. You see, in landscape architecture, when we study,
Okay.
we are taught how the land has ridges and valleys. The whole globe, the earth, so to say, is full of ridges and valleys. And thus we have, it all starts with, from mountains as springs. And then the water, the form of water, how it transforms from a spring to a pond, then it becomes a river, it becomes, then finally ocean. So this is the, what you say, the leaf. In the leaf, you have the main stem.
Yes.
At the bottom, the stem is thickest. And as it goes up, it becomes thinner. And then it has veins on either sides. So that is how the land is generally all over the globe. So I think that is an idea.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Uday Shankar has just an observation, sir. Lovely presentation. It'd be nice to and very interesting to have a site visit, one of these places organized for architects to have a greater depth.
Sure, sure. Certainly, I can accompany if it is organized by ISOLA. Certainly, we can.
We'll try to organize, sir. Definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely. Ms. Gayatri Gopal Krishnan asks, thank you for informing. Thank you for informative and interesting presentation, sir. From the image, the brackets, dancing figures, and the temple are seeming to be different materials. What are the type of stones used in temples? And 2, which part of the temple are these floating bricks used?
Which part of the temple?
Are the floating bricks used?
Okay. Yeah, very, very important and interesting aspect. The stones used are mainly 2 types of stones were used. Sandstone, which is very close to 2.7 kilometers from the site, which was quarried from the Cheluvai sandstone. Cheluvai red sandstone was quarried from the major part of the temple. The bottom portion is completely Adhisthana, Jagati, and the columns portion up to parapet, that is the Kapota level, the parapet level. So up to that is used, they used sandstone. The black stone is dolerite. Dolerite is the strong form of granite variety, but it is a very highly polished stone is used, dolerite, completely black dolerite. And there are also at portions granite, gray granite, which is typical of this region, Warangal and Hyderabad region mainly, but very less of granite. Directly gray granite was used. We have pink granite also here in Hyderabad, that is Gagan Pahad and that region where Mazamzahi Market, our city, this High Court have been built with Mahbubia College. Most of them were built with pink granite. The gray granite, partly gray granite was used. So the most of the temple used large portion is Chaluvai red sandstone and dolerite in black, whatever you would see, Nandi, the Shivalinga, and the ceiling panels, and the Ranga Mandapa inside, all the dancing sculptures, Gajayali sculptures, Simhayali sculptures, all these were with dolerite stone, finely carved. The Shikara part is with the brick, mainly to reduce the load over the structure. It is with the sandbox technology below, with the strong wall system with interlocking dowels, wall masonry, and bracket supported cantilevered projections of Kapota, and Shikara lightweight bricks. So where this floating brick was used in the complete Shikara portion. So reducing the weight of the Shikara, not using the stone, but using the lightweight brick over the Shikara, over the Garbhagriha. The Mukhanasi and Shikara are the lightweight bricks. So I hope this has clarified. This clarifies.
Does it have a trabeated style of roofing? Trabeated style?
No, sir. No. Trabeated is only the Mandapa, Mukha Mandapa and Mandapa portion. Whereas once it comes to Shikara, it is the carbelled arrangement of the Shikara inside, and which reaches as a Shikara form.
Any idea what is the height, sir?
Height, I don't remember exactly. Approximately, it is about around 90 feet, sir.
80 feet?
Around 80 feet.
80 feet.
80 feet.
Looks like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, one more question, sir, from Ms. Gayatri. Is there any mythological stories or events associated with Ramappa temple?
No, because there are no. In history, because most of the archaeologists also, they say they are required to be called connected with either true history or Puranas or Itihasas only. And mythology, because the mythology, the word itself is connected with the word called myth. Normally archaeologists and some of the traditional archaeologists, they don't connect these with, if we are using the word mythology as connection with some Puranas and Itihasas, this particular temple doesn't have any story built around, because it is a very historically established temple. Some of them as part of Sapta Santana people establish, and in some temples they have this religious and religious connection, where they have a sacred belief and connection to those sites, like Alampur, Sri Sailam, Kashi Vishwanath temple, in Varanasi, Madurai, Meenakshi temple, like Dwadasha Jyotirlinga Kshetras, Astadasha Shakti Pitas. Some of them have these Puranas and Itihasas connected, and whereas these sites, they have a strong historical need-based establishments. And the inscription pillars also demonstrate that. Whereas if you go to Srisailam, there are inscription pillars which describe and define those sites having a connection to Puranas and Itihasas. Whereas this site inscription doesn't have anything of that sort. So these were established by a meritorious deed performed by Recharla Rudra during that time. So that is the background to this. But they continued the values of Chalukyas and Cholas practiced across India and maintained in this temple in its original form. Could be visible, could be seen in this temple.
Very wonderful, sir. Nandakishore Garu is asking question regarding floating bricks. I think Central Building Research Institute, CBRI Roorkee, they did work too. For restoration purpose, who manufactured the floating bricks?
Restoration, they have not made any because only the plastering portion have been made. They conducted only the scientific test over the brick, but they did not manufacture any part of the brick, and it was not required. Central Building Research Institute was consulted for doing the scientific comparison, whereas the entire work was handled by National Institute of Technology, National Institute of Technology, Warangal. So for the portion of the restoration of the Shikara, they have plastered the Shikara portion. So you have Devakostas and Kutas and Mukhanasi. All these were plastered surfaces were made. So none of the bricks and have been replaced or brought anything new and manufactured again as of now.
Okay, okay. And was the sandbox technology used for foundation used only for temple construction, or can it be used for houses as well?
Not houses, not houses, but houses because some of the old structures could be found in Warangal Fort. So the old settlement patterns contained even from Harappan times when we see, and archaeological explorations revealed that from the wall profile, there is an expanded profile below and further expanded profile below, indicating that there was a foundation for the walls of common man houses and other buildings. Whereas for this temple, they adopted, and even for fort walls, they seem to have used this sandbox idea at many portions of Warangal Fort that was established by NIT Warangal itself.
Right. Another question, sir. Has the temple experienced any earthquake or flooding recently or historically?
Yes. During 1984-88, when this actual study was conducted along all these three sites, they identified three lineament locations below the ground with radar identification, and there are portions where this earthquake pattern would have moved along these structures. They discovered, and there are patterns visible inside the mandapa of the temple, where because of that it could have bbeen lifted up. So there is a portion inside the mandapa where the floor portion has raised by 4 or 5 inches because of that kind of upliftment which could have happened due to earthquake, but it did not disturb any part of the structure. There is a fault line identified by means of the technology available during 1984 to 88 time, and today we have even further more detailed idea that is again required to be verified. But what I had seen from the report of 1984 prepared by NIT Warangal contained this fault lines identification with the help of earlier satellite maps of 1984. And there are portions of effect on the temple, but they did not damage any portion of the temple.
Okay,
Sorry.
I think one last question I think we can take, sir. Krishnanand Garu, sorry, is asking, double wall technology could be another innovation of Kakatiya dynasty.
It is not only Kakatiyas. Double wall, in fact, is widely used. That is, one can say that it was widely used during Kakatiyas. But it was there even during Chalukyas. Western Chalukyas and Eastern Chalukyas also used this double wall technique. And some portion sandwich wall, and especially Prakara wall also, they have used double wall technique. Yes.
Fantastic. And did the flooding happen inside the temple complex? The previous question.
Yes, the inside the temple complex also it was allowed, because this was a study conducted directly by under Archaeological Survey of India. It was conducted inside the temple, outside the temple, across the temple, in the vicinity of the temple, across the landscape of the temple, because there were many aspects that were required to be documented before it is sent for as a proof for World Heritage recognition. So we did complete detailed documentation. At least 3-kilometer range of the temple was studied in detail.
Superb, sir. Superb. Very interesting, sir. So there are no more questions. One more question I had. What are the challenges you faced to document and compile data to present it to World Heritage, to make the site a World Heritage category?
What are the
challenges you faced?
Challenges? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Because these some of the sites like Ramappa are very easily accessible. We didn't have much problem for this. But the major challenge is accessing the heights, accessing some of the details, and documenting it, because we learn architecture if it is given to architecture students and architects. When we are doing it, we have this 2-dimensional geometry, 3-dimensional geometry, the way we understand architectural drawing and documentation, and what we need to understand while documenting temples is completely different. Because while doing these temples, they did not have this kind of documentation techniques and drawings. They're different. So the whole component was visualized as a sculpture and component attached to another component. So that kind of drawing technique is required in order to visualize. Even if we trace something by keeping the photogrammetric method, it is not complete. It cannot be complete. Photogrammetry method is we take the photogrammetry photograph perpendicular normal to the picture and we trace it. But it is not true to the perspective that is established because of the picture taken by the camera. So the perspective is already present in the sculpture or the picture taken for the thing. So the major challenge is understanding that and training our eye, because we are trained in drawing plans and elevations with Cartesian geometry and the simple cube geometry. It is difficult to learn that and also relearn the documentation technique required for this. It requires just a little bit of orientation, and one has to just deconstruct that and reconstruct the similar geometric methods to be adopted. Whereas people who are trained in temple architecture, they are trained in the way temple is constructed. It is not the way we train architectural drawing and architectural documentation and the Cartesian geometry method. They understand the sculpture, they understand the component, and the components are joined. So that is how the whole component and the whole structure is understood, rather than a plan, side elevation, front elevation, and cross section. They don't understand it like that. Only for the purpose of our architectural practice, we are using the such language. Whereas So that kind of technique is required to be incorporated even in our architectural training. Some kind of and not some kind of awareness is required while understanding Indian structures, how these structures were created by people, those who created them. That is very much important in our learning. Then it becomes easy because we are learning that for Roman architecture, we are learning that for Egyptian architecture, we are going into deep because as if they are high-level mysteries, but there is unraveled mystery available in India, which is required to be explored, which is required to be taught for our students in India. So if it is explored in that way, I think most of the challenges are relating to understanding how these were made by the original people. So understanding, going to that route is the most important challenge we have faced. In other sites, some of the sites, we don't have drawings and all. So we have to combine various methods. We have digital techniques, we have photogrammetry method, we have Google Maps, we have already prepared plans. All of them are required to be correlated, and we need to come to the accuracy to document these things, either photographically or in terms of drawings and in terms of pictures or any kind of documentation, descriptive documentation also.
Very, very, very interesting.
I think we'll conclude. Harish?
Absolutely, sir. We can conclude.
We'll thank Suryanarayana for having given exhaustive talk. Now, can I request Professor Fanisri Madam? Are you there, Madam? Fanisri Madam? Fanisri Madam, unmute. Are you there? Okay. Sharath, are you there? Sharath or Shivani? Sharath
Yeah.
or Shivani, are you there?
Yeah, Fanisri is here.
Dr. Fanisri.
Yeah.
She is the registrar of our JNFI University. Dr. Fanisri is a very senior landscape architect who has been a professor in the teaching line. I request Dr. Fanisri to give a vote of thanks. Please, madam. Thank you.
She was my teacher also, sir.
Pardon?
She was my teacher.
Yeah, very good.
Vote of thanks.
Yeah, please, madam. Go ahead.
Yeah. First of all, I should thank Murthy for giving such a wonderful, talk on Ramappa Temple and the cultural landscapes, especially. I was so interested in the cultural landscapes part of it, and in fact, my father, who worked in Warangal, also participated and listened to you. He was very excited to understand your the way you were explaining. He was quite excited to know a lot of details also. And I thank you so much for the good work you have done, and also the Telangana government, which is making so much of effort in restoring our forgotten landscapes, forgotten irrigation systems, and other things. I thank our ISOLA members, especially the core team, Narsimam Garu, then Zahid, the secretary, then Harish, who have taken a lot of active role in conducting this thing. I thank all the participants also who have raised such good questions, and to know more in detail about this talk today. Over to Narsimam Garu.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Fanisri Garu. I hope all of us enjoyed, in spite of some hiccups in the beginning. We are very sorry. I don't know from where that has cropped up, how this software has allowed it. We will ensure such thing will never happen again. We will take care, and we will come up with more beautiful talks like Murthy today. We will certainly have a celebration of landscape architecture in India, in South India, in the world. So with this, can I call it a day? our Honorable Treasurer, Secretary, and all my landscape architects members. Shall we call it off?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
Thank
One
you.
round of applause to Surana Garu.
Round of applause to Suryanarayana. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Your
you.
passion, your hard work, nobody can value it. I mean, it's invaluable.
Thank you, sir.
We know your hard work. So
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
we really appreciate. Thank you so much for enriching today's evening with your talk. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.